So the White House is again, this is minutes ago, confirming that there is no change to their provision of long-term or long-range missiles to Ukraine policy. John Kirby just said this. It just came out. Here are the three big stories. Nothing is changing there, but I want you to understand, and congratulations, thank you, Morton, you get an A. Morton pointed this out. If you go to the original legislation about what they're supposed to be providing, and you look at it, this is the bill itself, and you go down to page 34, it says this, Section 505, transfer of long-range ATACMS, required, not if you want to, required. As soon as practicable, after the date of enactment of this act, the president shall, that means you'll do it, you shall transfer long-range Army tactical missile systems to the government of Ukraine to assist the government of Ukraine in defending itself and achieving victory against the Russian Federation. That's the way that the bill in Congress passed by both houses of Congress was written. Now, there's a notification. If the president determines that executing the transfer of long-range Army tactical missile systems to the government of Ukraine pursuant to this subsection would be detrimental to the national security interests of the United States, the president may withhold such transfer and shall notify Congress, Congressional Defense Committee, the Committees on Appropriations and Foreign Relations, and the Committee of Appropriations for Foreign Affairs of the House of Representatives. So the only reason that Biden can actually hold this back is not because he's like, oh, I'm a little worried about what Putin might do, but if it's detrimental to our national security, meaning we don't have enough or something along those lines. Now, I guess you could read that and say, well, it could cause escalation, but okay, he's supposed to be providing these ATACMS. Okay, so we know where Kirby is today and nothing has changed. Meanwhile, Che Bowes, he's on RT very frequently. I believe he's an Irishman who's on RT. I asked a Russian friend tonight what he thinks might happen if NATO-supplied missiles were to hit Moscow or St. Petersburg. He said that should worry people in NATO countries a lot more than it worries him. Again, this is the Russian saber rattling. You'll see more of this in just a moment. Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. This is their official Twitter site. President Putin on possible Kyiv regimes strike deep inside Russian territory using Western long-range weapons. This will mean that NATO countries, the USA and European countries, are at war with Russia. No, it doesn't mean that until you decide it means that, and you decide to do something about that to cause a state of war. But that doesn't mean it automatically, not by a long shot. Okay. Ben Hodges reacting to Elbridge Colby. Colby says, it seems important to pay attention to what President Putin himself is saying. Hodges' reply, huh? Are you serious? Our biggest mistake for years has been listening to this Russian mafia boss threatening us while we, over multiple administrations, including the one in which you served, did nothing to stop them. Get a map. Read a book. It's a good answer. Okay. UATV in English, the USA may allow Ukraine to use Storm Shadow and Scalp in the Russian Federations according to the Times. They may. It hasn't been approved yet. They may. However, the country will not allow its ATACMS to be launched, hoping to prevent further escalation of the conflict. Okay, now Jay in Kyiv says the only reason Biden will authorize Ukraine to use Storm Shadow missiles before his election is because they don't have any. Well, if you don't have any, you have very few, it's probably not that big of a threat. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer went on and said that Ukraine has the right to self-defense, but made it clear that Kyiv will not yet be allowed to use Western missiles to strike deep into Russia. We are not seeking any conflict with Russia. It is not part of our intentions in the slightest, the British Prime Minister commented. So it seems like they're not going to do it. Meanwhile, a Russian MP is suggesting that they test nuclear weapons on the territory of the Russian Federation. Why? So that Russia will remind the world politicians of the danger of nuclear weapons. Quote, we shouldn't relax. We should make a nuclear explosion somewhere at some test site. We have now banned nuclear tests, but maybe people should see what it all really leads to. It's worth hearing, he said. Yeah, that's because he's saber rattling. Okay. Russian red lines. Let's talk about this. This was in the Euromaidan press. Russian red line, the violation, and Russian escalation. NATO supplying lethal aid to Ukraine. 2022 was the violation. Ukraine gets lethal aid. Russian escalation. NATO supplying long-range weapons. 2022-2023, Ukraine gets ATACMS and HIMARS. Russian escalation. NATO Crossing a red line, attack on illegally annexed territory. 2022, Ukraine retakes Kherson, Russian escalation. Any attempt to retake Crimea was a red line. Ukraine's actions, Ukraine attacks Crimea daily. 2022. 2023, Ukraine bombs headquarters of Russia's Black Sea Fleet. Russian escalation. Attacks on Russia's Black Sea Fleet. 2022 to 2024, Ukraine destroys 37% of Russia's Black Sea Fleet, pushes it out of Crimea. Russia's escalation. NATO supplying main battle tanks. 2023, they violated this. Ukraine gets Leopards and Abrams tanks. Russia's escalation. NATO supplying Patriots. 2023, Ukraine gets Patriots. Russia's escalation. Red line, attack on Russian infrastructure. 2023 to 2024, Ukraine bombs Russian oil refineries. Russian escalation. Attack on Russian territory. 2023 to 2024, Ukrainian drones strike Russian airfields, military factories. 2024, Ukraine makes a ground incursion into Kursk Oblast. Russia's response. NATO delivering F-16s. 2024, F-16s delivered to Ukraine. Russia's response. Okay. Strikes with Western weapons on Russian soil. You are here. We're waiting for that to happen. And I'm pretty sure there won't be any significant red line that is crossed. I mean, they might bomb a few more things with more drones or missiles, but what else are they going to do? They're not going to use nuclear weapons. They simply can't use nuclear weapons. Darth Putin asks, have you noticed that when Russia gets long-range weapons from Iran and North Korea, that isn't an escalation? Okay, next big story. Shoigu has visited North Korea. Is he going to beg Kim Jong-un for more weapons? I think that's probably what's going to happen. He needs to get them from Iran. He needs to get them from North Korea. You can't build them unless they have Chinese parts. And here's that story. Russia is producing a new kamikaze drone with a maximum flight range of 1,500 kilometers, according to Reuters. The agency, citing sources, reports the production of the Harpy A1 attack drone equipped with Chinese engines and parts. They're using Chinese parts because they don't have the capacity to build it on their own. Okay. Third big story, Ukraine faces the highest death rate and lowest birth rate globally amid Russia's war. And this is going to be probably true until the war ends. The demographic crisis poses the greatest long-term threat to Ukraine's defense and sustainability. For every 1,000 Ukrainians, 18 die while only 6 are born annually. Yeah, it's actually 18.6 per 1,000 and the lowest birth rate. And here we look at Wikipedia. Now, this is the population chart. And of course, there's going to be fewer really old people in their 90s and then in their 80s and then so on. But then when you look at when they were born, 89 is about 88, 89 is about the peak. And then in early 90s, as they're breaking away from the Soviet Union, it's very chaotic. And so it's understandable that the growth rate slowed down a bit, just like it's understandable that in 2022, 23, and 24, the birth rate slowed down significantly. And it's not going to change for a little while because you don't want to be pregnant in a war zone or that sort of thing. And so, okay, that's where we are. So the growth rate is negative 6.6. The birth rate is 8.6. The death rate is 15.2. And that's how we come up with that number. Okay, that's a big problem. Now, I have 3 or 4 very small things that we want to attend to. On this date in 2022, we denied that there would be mobilization. We lied. Remember this when they said there's not going to be any mobilization, and then there was? On this date in 1939, Nazi Germany and the USSR exchanged telegrams concerning common arrangements for our joint invasion of Poland. Topics were the state of the Polish army. Kremlin told Berlin its plan to attack Poland on 9/17/1939 and how propaganda would explain it. It's the sort of thing that allies would do. Now, this is Randy Mott. He's a Republican who supports Ukraine and said neither side in the Ukraine war will concede to existing lines. The Vance hypothesis, that's J.D. Vance, the Republican vice presidential candidate, the Vance hypothesis is dead on arrival. Remember that the RNC, the Republican National Committee platform in 2016 and 2020 called for supporting Ukraine's 1991 borders. It's missing now. Where are the real rhinos now? That rhinos means Republican in name only, and it's used usually to smear moderates, but now it's being used to smear folks like me that are conservatives, that have always been Republican, that are Reagan Republicans, that are actually still doing what we've done before, and the MAGA crowd has tried to displace this policy position. And here's a meme with Ronald Reagan saying, "I didn't destroy the USSR so you could lick their boot and call yourself a conservative." That's right, Ronald Reagan's position would be very, very different than Trump's position on this. Okay, two more things and we'll be done. Tomorrow, there will be a live stream for our patrons and members Saturday morning. It's 8 a.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. London, 3 p.m. Kyiv. I hope you can join me. And then there's also this huge fundraiser with multiple Ukraine YouTubers and other personalities, Starsky, Jake Bro, Anna from Ukraine, Sergey Sumileny, and others. So if you can attend this and be part of this, this would be awesome. They're trying to raise $50,000 in 24 hours, and I hope they can do it. Thank you for your time, folks. Thank you for the likes and the shares and the subscribes, and thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.